With that, I'll pass it over to Paul.
Okay, thank you. Dave, can you hear me in the back okay?
Yes.
Dave can't hear me. Okay. All right, thanks. Okay, this is a precursor to the boat tour so that you have some kind of idea of the history, because when we get there, you're going to see the modern harbor. And it has changed a lot over the years. So we'll try to give you some background on it. In the late 1820s, the U.S. government sent surveyors out to the Wisconsin, which was then the Michigan territory, to plot it out as a potential state. And so surveyors were walking through Wisconsin and doing what they do. And one of the things they recorded was a harbor. And it was located in the area that we are now in. And it was the only harbor that they really located in the entire western shore of Lake Michigan. In 1825, 1830, 1835, 1840, 1850, the superhighway of commerce was water. There was no railroad, there was no freeway, there was no truck, it was just water. And so water was critical if you were going to establish a community and you wanted to build business. You needed access to water in which you could move things around. Okay. Put this list together to kind of demonstrate how important water was. The list here, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, New Orleans, Houston, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle. They all have one thing in common. They have water that is navigable and harbors to harbor boats to make them secure in bad weather so they can load and unload commerce. It's very important. These are historically some of the most important cities in the U.S. Boston, New York, and Philadelphia play a critical role in 250 years ago. They are critically important, but they have natural harbors, so it works well. The others that you see here come on later, particularly Los Angeles and San Francisco and Seattle, but they have the same common thing. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, St. Louis, and Minneapolis. What do they have in common?
Rivers.
Our rivers. And what is it about those rivers? They're big and they're navigable. So you can move product, you can move things on them. And so that's what you take a look at the cities that develop there. They become major cities for 150, 200 years later because they had that as their capacity. And then you have Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, and Milwaukee. What do they have in common? The Great Lakes. Okay? And so the Great Lakes is also, because of the body of water, you can move commerce. Now, how did you get commerce out of the Great Lakes after 1830?
Erie Canal.
The Erie Canal. It was a game changer for the Great Lakes because then you could ship anywhere to the Erie Canal and down the Erie Canal to the Hudson River and to the world. Now, back in those days, it might take you 3 months to get from Milwaukee to the Hudson River because it was all slow and a lot of horsepower was involved in it, but it was the deal. So you can understand the role that water plays in the future development of communities. It's critically important. This is the Milwaukee River. It starts up in Fond du Lac County. It's Teresa is probably the nearest community where you start. And you got the west branch and the east branch up here, and then the north branch over there. It comes down to West Bend. How do you think West Bend got its name? The river bends at West Bend. And that's how it gets there, and it works its way down to Milwaukee. So it's a large river drainage area. This is the Menominee, and this is the Kinnickinnick. They form the Milwaukee Harbor. They're all feeding into the harbor. This is the drainage area for the Milwaukee River complex in Menominee. In other words, anybody who lives in the brown area here, your water, if it rains, whatever it is, naturally flows to the Milwaukee River or one of the other rivers. It goes that way accordingly. And it's important to know how the water flows because you can build things around it, and we'll explain that a little bit later. Here we go, Milwaukee. This map is from 1835. 1 year before statehood. We're still not statehood, territory status. And this is what people thought Milwaukee looked like. Okay. Our favorite Jones Island, a very kind of a romantic notion we have about Jones Island these days. This is the peninsula, and this is the early entrance to the harbor. It's over here on the south end, which would be the, so to speak, the south end of the Holland Bridge. That's where the entrance would be, and you came in. The Milwaukee River going that way, the Menominee coming down. This map, it demonstrates it, but the whole area around here is swampy. It's not solid land. A lot of what we consider to be the waterfront today is landfill from somewhere. And so that's it. Now, for those of you who lived down in the 3rd Ward, and you wondered where the name Walker's Point came from, all of this land is squishy. The only place that you could get across on the south side, which was developed by Mr. Walker, is this particular point here where the where the Water Street Bridge goes across the Milwaukee River. So there was that point of land, and so everybody back in the days called it Walker's Point, and we still use that same term today. We filled in the land around it. It's kind of an interesting map. Here's another one, and just a different configuration, trying to look at it from the top. It's a little blurry, so I'm not sure exactly why. But you see the Menominee coming in, and then you see the Kinnickinnick down here. For those of you who have lived on the south side of Milwaukee, where does the Kinnickinnick River start? Anybody know? It does run behind the hospital. If you've been in the parking lots in the back of the hospital, there's a river there. It starts in Jackson Park, of all places. That's the orange river. This is another picture that kind of demonstrates, this is the idea of what someone thought the Menominee River was like. And the reason being is most of this was swampy. And so they made it much larger than it was. But it comes in this way. If you see up in the east side over here, there are these little gullies, okay? One of them is on the back side of Brady Street, the north side of Brady Street. How many of you closed Walski's at some night? Okay? You could go uphill from there, and it was a garbage dump. They just threw the garbage down that gully, and it would wash down to, of all places, the Milwaukee River. And so the garbage from this part of town for a period of time was always ending up in the Milwaukee River, because that's the only way they could get rid of it. So it was that. It's kind of an interesting map. There's 2 entrances here. The south side entrance, which is the original, and this one that's here. There are 2 parts of this entrance that's here. It's called the Milwaukee Cut. But before there was the official Milwaukee Cut, there was a night group that would come in at night and take away dirt to expand this as a potential entryway into the harbor. The problem with the south here was it was a shallow draft. So the schooners that had to come bring stuff in 1836, 1837, 1838 were all single-masted schooners, and they had a shallow draft so they could get in. But as time went on, you needed a bigger boat because there was more commerce, so you had to have a bigger boat to get in. It's just another example of it. That's there. This is 1869. The cut that's here is the entrance. That's what we'll travel on when we take our cruise. We'll be going that way because the harbor, the Holland Bridge comes across this. But as you can see, the waterfront here is very limited in terms of space. It's not what we can think of today. This one's not a good one. This is a later one. This is 1899. These are mile markers in terms of what's there. The south is now closed. The cut is open. The south it actually closed itself because it was so shallow. After a while, it just filled up the sediment, and then they put landfill on top of it, so it was no longer there. But that's how it went. So that's the kind of the early geographic kind of aspect of the river. And by 1899, the major flow of the river is up to North Avenue. After that, boats could not go beyond. Okay, it was that. And once the North Avenue Dam went in, which was south of North Avenue, that was the extent north in which you could travel. Okay, here's a picture that's used quite often in Milwaukee history. It's actually a drawing, but it's a fairly accurate drawing. This is Wisconsin Avenue here. This is Michigan Avenue. This is Clybourne over here. What I'm interested in showing you in this picture is those three things that stick out into the lake. Okay? This picture is before 1856, before the cut is in. Well, with the shallow entrance on the south side and bigger boats coming all the time, they built piers out into Lake Michigan. Okay? There were three of them that were built. Now, let me ask you this. If you've been here long enough and you've been near Lake Michigan in a storm, how long do you think those piers lasted? Not very long. Now, they were out 1,200 feet out into the lake. They were making it 2 or 3 years, and then they had to be rebuilt. 2 or 3 years, and they had to be rebuilt. Therefore, the cut coming in, which would be over here, was essential to be able to do that. There are no longer piers today. The tall point over here is what? It's the cathedral. Okay, that's the cathedral. St. John's is right over there. The lighthouse should still be there, but it's not in this drawing. But the original lighthouse is at the end of Wisconsin Avenue. But this is a general representation of what Milwaukee would have looked like in about 1850. Here's one of the boats that they were building from Milwaukee. This becomes a 3-masted schooner, but you can see the depth of it and so forth. The boatyard in Milwaukee in this period of time was the Wolf Boat Yard, built 2,500 boats to ply the Great Lakes over the period of time that they were in it. And it was a very successful company for a long time.
What was the time frame again, Paul, on that? Building the boats?
The building of boats went from about the late 1840s to about 1870s. And then after that, it changed from schooners to steam. Steam became the next iteration of power. Wind was no longer as effective as the steam, and we would go to steamboats. But this is what the harbor used to look like. It's full of boats of this style. They weren't big boats, they weren't anything like that. These are actually small boats. And what you see in here is, back here, is the Angus Smith grain elevator. How many of you did the tour of the house over here on Terrace that's now being used by a church group? How many of you were on that? Okay, Angus Smith. This is his business. He was the largest grain dealer in the United States for a period of time, 1868 to about 1878. Now, why would Milwaukee be the largest grain port in the world at that point in time? How would that happen?
Closest to Iowa.
Pardon?
Closest to Iowa.
Closest to Iowa? Well, Wisconsin was a wheat state back in those days. Wisconsin doesn't become a dairy state until about the 1880s. It was still wheat, but Iowa was wheat. Southern Minnesota was wheat. But normally, the stuff would have gone down the Mississippi River. Why couldn't they go down the Mississippi River? Think Civil War. What happened in New Orleans in the Civil War? What did the U.S. Navy do? They blockaded the Mississippi River, so that it couldn't get out. So we had all this grain, you could make money at it. So where do you ship it? You ship it to the largest port on Lake Michigan. And there it gets loaded on boats, up, around, over to Huron, into Erie, over to Buffalo. The entrance to the canal is just north of Buffalo. And offload it there, across New York, and you're out to the world. And that's why we have the grain exchange downtown Milwaukee. It was built for all the grain trading because it was all done in Milwaukee for a period of time. What would have caused that to change?
Trains.
Trains. Thank you, Dennis. Dennis goes to the head of the class right there. It's trains. Once trains came,
Chicago.
then you didn't have to do that. And you ran it down through Chicago. And trains are really what made Chicago. While Chicago was a port, it had a weak port. It didn't have good protection. They wanted to protect their boats so they could offload and not be bothered by the waves on Lake Michigan and so forth like that. So I don't know what's in all the barrels that are here. They're strewn all over the place. Someone suggested they were beer barrels, but I doubt it in this particular situation. But this is the Angus Smith grain place. This is another picture. It's too blurry. When I blow it up, it gets blurry, and it just, I need something else to be able to handle the digit on it. And this is the other thing that would be the great import into Milwaukee, and that is coal. Now this is an early coal delivery. The man is, in fact, the bucket goes down the hole here. Someone down there fills this bucket up, they pull it up and put it into a wheelbarrow and haul it off. Now, how long do you think it would take to unload a boat? A long time. This is what you would call manual labor of the first order. And every engineer in the world has an idea on how to fix this because this is really not what you call efficient. The other thing that's on this boat is lumber. Lumber was being shipped in from northern Wisconsin. And generally, the early lumber was coming out of the Manitowoc and Green Bay area, and then eventually from Michigan to Milwaukee. And lumber was needed for, not your fireplace, you gotta build buildings. The early lumber barons were smart. They realized early on that you needed access to lumber. And they started right away buying large properties throughout Wisconsin to acquire the land, to take down the trees, to provide lumber. And the Chicago market was the big market for them over time, particularly after the Chicago fire. There was really a need for a lot of lumber. Oh, this is the romantic place. This is Jones Island. Who's living here? The Kasubs, who are from Poland. And the Germans, oh my God, why am I blanking on their name? Starts with a P. No, it'll come to me. And this is what it looks like in its heyday. It starts in the 1870s and will continue till the early 1920s, at which point the city is forcing them out. Just a comment on the city forcing them out. This land was never plotted. So everybody who lives on the island is a squatter. And they do not own the land. They own the building, but not the land. And as they were moved off, this was a contentious issue as to what should happen. So finally the city of Milwaukee agreed on a basic price for a house. And that was it. They didn't get the value of the land when they moved off. And you can see the island's got trees on it, so forth like that. They essentially developed it. They were all fishermen from the Baltic area. Why can't I think of the Pomeranians? I'm sorry if I'm repeating me. The Pomeranians were the other group that was in there. They're both, the Kasubs and the Pomeranians are fishermen in the Baltic Sea. So this was an ideal place for them. Lake Michigan was full of whitefish. And it was easy to throw your nets, fill it up, bring it back in, and sell your wares in the city of Milwaukee. This is a shipbuilding yard, the Wolf and Davidson, after a while, yard. Mr. Wolf is buried at Folsom Cemetery, and he has a big boat on top of his monument. Know that. And so this is what Jones Island looks like. We've almost made it a romantic place. John Gerda has a lot to do with that, things that he's written about it. Here's some other pictures of it. This is an interesting picture. It's a double picture. And this is looking from the north-south, so you can see the harbor area that's in here. And this is the point that comes out into the cut. You can see the size of the cut here. And this area is an early start to what we would know as the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District. It wasn't known as the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District back then. There's a very early start at it. As time would go on, as the ships got larger, this point of land was an impediment to bigger boats. So this was all removed, dredged out, and it was made, so to speak, square, coming in over this way. So that's it. But this is Jones Island, and for a period of almost 50 years, it was a place. At one point in the 1890s, it was a place to go on Saturday night. Okay, you get in a little boat, you go across the harbor, and you go to the bar, because they had bars and stuff out there. And so it was kind of a thing for gentlemen to be able to do.
Would they still have a summer festival there or something, or a weekend?
Not that I know of. There's a small park over there where you can land your boat currently, and they have a little picnic there once in a while in honor of the Cassups, who are the largest group there. But it's the Milwaukee Public Library has a complete list of photographic representation on Jones Island, but it's all about the children and the school that was there. You don't get many pictures of the location, you get pictures of the people.
Paul, can I ask a dumb question, not having lived that long in Milwaukee? What is Jones Island now?
Now it's the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District,
Okay.
and the place where we keep the winter salt.
So when you go across the home bridge and stuff, it's on
Once
the
you're
right.
over from the north side of the harbor to the south side, right below you,
Yeah.
that's Jones Island.
Thank you.
Okay, but it's disappeared as an island. It's now a peninsula.
Gotcha, that's
Okay,
all.
it's gone away. And this is towards the end of Jones Island. You can see the land out here has now been vacated. Everything's been torn down, and this is the last remnants of it. And this is around 1923. The last resident was there till 1928. He just hung on. And it's okay. It was his home, and so we saw it that way. But not much left, and you can see the construction process has begun. It's too bad it's not good. This is the teachers coming to the island. They had classrooms there. They had 2 classrooms and 2 teachers. Came over every day. They did not live on the island. They went back home every night, back and forth on the boat. In the winter months, there was no school if there was ice. Okay, it was kind of an interesting thing. But okay, and this is a picture of the mothers of some of the children. That's how it's titled. And I'm not sure when it's taken, but my best guess is it's prior to 1910 in terms of the attire and so forth like that. But it probably a Sunday afternoon picnic type arrangement that they were there. Even in 1910, you worked 6 days a week. Sunday was the only day off. This is another picture of Jones Island. The end, the railroad has come. The railroad will now be delivering stuff to Jones Island. And it's the big change that's taking place. I won't do it back.
Looking north?
That's looking north, yeah. This is another picture of the harbor. Actually, an earlier date. This is north of Wisconsin Avenue. And so it'd be State Street, Juneau, etc. That's what the area looked like. At this point, most of them are 2-masted schooners, an occasional 1-masted, and no 3-masted at this point. And here's a 3-masted schooner, and this is up at State Street Bridge there. So it's that was how it operated for years. It was just strictly schooners. And coming up to the river, they were now protected, and it was easy to unload your goods or load your goods depending on whatever was happening in that situation. This is kind of a later picture. This is along the Kinnickinnick. They're trying to remove what they've established here in the water, which I think was a pier. They're trying to get it out. As you can see, they have highly mechanized equipment, which is tackle and rope to get it done. In the background, remember the guys who brought the bucket of coal out? We now have this arrangement bringing coal. Coal dominated the Milwaukee Harbor. If you would have gone there in 1880, 1890, 1900, 1910, 1920, the thing that you would most see was coal, huge amounts of coal, because coal came in and Milwaukee was the supplier for primarily this part of Wisconsin. Stuff was trucked out of here to places as far west as Madison until trains could carry it. This is my favorite place. This is State Street. They're going to tear this down to build the State Street Bridge. But what I like about this is really built right into the lake. In the background, you see the Usinger building, so you know where we are. But machines rented by the week or the month. Today, people don't think of renting their sewing machine. You go out and buy them a sewing machine. But back in those days, people didn't have enough money to buy one and have it all year round, so you rented it when you needed it. So that was kind of an interesting deal. Here's the Milwaukee lakefront. This is the cut. You're going to travel on that with the boat. And what do you see? That's not a church. A big building. That's the Milwaukee incinerator. Okay? This is the early form of trash removal. That incinerator was there from, and this is a larger version of it, they added onto it over the years. This starts right after World War I, and it is there till the early 1950s. We burned trash that couldn't be burned, ended up here. What's here today? Summerfest. That's what's there today. That's the Summerfest grounds. Okay. So when you make the turn, when the boat makes the turn and goes into the straight cut, that's where this is. In the background here, this is Emmanuel Presbyterian Church. And you'll see other pictures, and this is Northwestern Mutual. This is where the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District will expand. It's just nothing but
What year is
swampy land.
What year is this approximately?
This is approximately 1920. It's kind of in the modern era, when you think about it, but just take a look at what's there. It's kind of ugly. Really ugly. Compared to what we have today, this is a remarkable change. So that's what it looked like. Garbage was being brought and dumped. If they couldn't burn it, they would dump it, they could turn it into landfill. So next time you're at Summerfest and you're in the big theater, it's now the American Family Theater. Remember, everything that's underneath you is landfill. It's garbage from Milwaukee from a long time ago. The old train station is here. This is Northwestern Mutual. This building here, which was torn down in '72, is the old Elks Club. Northwestern Mutual would buy the property. Pardon?
I have a question. What was it on the barge?
What was it?
On the barge that used to float offshore in Milwaukee, in Lake Michigan. Oh, yeah. There was a rectangular barge, hard to tell exactly how big it was.
Where was it located?
It was a water intake.
I think you're talking about the water intake.
Was it water tank?
Did it have rocks on top of it?
I couldn't tell.
Probably the water intakes, and they used to have love painted on it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the water intake for the water district. Yeah. It's not the original water intake, but that was the water intake. It was to protect it, so so it was kind of an interesting deal. So that's the location of it. This tall building at the end is the water tower, right across the street, so to speak. What's there? Here's another view, closer, but you can see what it's like. It's just a massive mountain thing. This is the old train station that was torn down. That's the Elks building that was torn down. This is Emmanuel Presbyterian Church, and this is the apartment building. If you come on State, and you're going to turn onto Prospect, there's the white building on the corner, and then there's that older apartment building. It was used to be called the Grant Building. Go ahead.
Where was the airport?
That's coming up. Okay, you're talking about Maitland Field? Yeah, that's coming up.
One
Let's
that
see.
has the green rounded kind of.
Yes, it's got an Art Deco style to
Yes.
it. The building was originally built by Harry Grant, who was the publisher of the Milwaukee Journal back in the days. It was kind of an investment. Back in the days, a lot of people built things for investment because they wanted the money. Investment market back in 1910, 1920 was not anything like it is today. So if you had money, you built the building and got the revenue off of it, and that was true accordingly. But it's interesting. Come on. This is an interesting picture, and it gives you an idea. This is laying the foundations of the current Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District. Back then, it's the Sewage Commission at Jones Island. These are pilings that they're putting in. And it's 9,500 pilings to be able to build what they have, because the ground is so soft, it's spongy. You have to drive the pilings way down to get to solid ground. But they had to put in 9,500 pilings. That's a lot of pilings to put in. And that's a lot of banging noise. It was just going on day after day after day after day to do it. It's quite remarkable. And you're looking across the cut and the harbor thing. And there's trucks over there dropping garbage and doing everything accordingly. So it's kind of interesting how it changed. This is a view, I kind of showed it earlier, but I think it goes now. This is the Illinois steel plant that was at it was actually in Bayview. In the steel plant, this would be the end of the home bridge these days. Now, why is the steel plant important to East Castle Place? The executive director, the president of Illinois Steel, back in the 1880s and very early 1890s, his last name was Hinton. Hinton, right? The Hinton addition. Okay, that's where the money came to build the Hinton addition to the original building. And he was I'll call him the president of this. This was a part of Illinois Steel. And it was there starting right after the Civil War and remained there till about it closed around the time of the First World War, and then there was a tug of war as to who would pay to tear it down. Whether the company would pay for it, or the government had to pay for it, and back and forth, back and forth. Eventually a compromise was reached and it was all taken down. The building over here is Allen Bradley, and some of the other buildings are long gone. But this is now, the island has been closed off. The original entrance was right here, where you see the narrow part. And just note how it shapes up. This is the expansion of the port. Now we're into the late 20s. You sewage district has expanded out into the area where they had all the pilings, it was there. All this open space on the lakefront. This is Northwestern Mutual up here, and this white glob over here is the Cudahy complex. Just a question thing. We always talk about the Cudahy complex, but when it was named Cudahy, it was named Cudahy for the tower. Does anybody know what the white buildings that aren't part of the tower were called? They were the Buena Vista Flats. Buena Vista Flats. If you're really into oddball trivia, if you remember McGee and Molly, you remember where they lived? They lived on Buena Vista Avenue. Anyway, this is building plans for expanding the harbor. They're still there, but all this space here is still empty. All this space over there is still empty. The lakefront looks pretty barren and not very attractive, is it? Kind of is remarkable if you think of it today. There's another picture of it, just taking a look at it a different way. This is known as the Kinnickinnick Basin. This is the main harbor. That's the entrance. That's the Milwaukee River coming in. This does not show the Menominee, and this is the Kinnickinnick right over here. So that's gives you an idea of what it used to look like. Most of what is here is landfill. And Milwaukee got permission to build landfill up to 1,200 feet from the original shoreline. Just a more modern version of that picture, just so you get some idea how things have changed over time. What you begin to see now are tanks. Tanks for oil. Not using coal furnaces anymore, we're using oil furnaces, right? And what follows oil furnaces? It's going to be gas furnaces, which we use today, so you kind of see it. Up in the corner here, you see these two stripes. That's going to be the airfield that you were talking about, Greenland Field. And this is a common scene from the end of World War II until the early 60s. These are ore carriers belonging to U.S. Steel, and they were brought off the Great Lakes in early November to avoid the ice, and they would remain in Milwaukee until March. In that period of time, they would all be serviced. And what you see here is a bunch of cars, and these are the workmen who are working on these boats. And when they worked on a boat, they fired it up so they had heat and stuff like that. So you would occasionally go there and you would see boats like that. This was a kind of a great job to have, because you started in November, you were done in March, and you could lay off the next time. So it was kind of a great job to have. Yeah.
Where was that dagger that they were all sitting? Could you go back?
That's in the Kinnickinnick
Could
Basin.
you go back a couple of pictures and show us on that? Go back, yeah.
This is where the boats would be. This is the Kinnickinnick Basin, is this section here.
So that dagger
That's where the
is still
boats would
there.
be.
That dagger is still there.
Yeah. This is coal. I should have put it in earlier, but I put it in here. You can see how much coal there can be brought in now. Not in a single sloop, but a boat carrying tons and tons and tons of coal. This is being loaded off on the west side of Jones Island. There was also a major coal yard in the Menominee Valley, but this one is Western Fuel. Lori?
When we were in the condo on the Milwaukee River, we moved in 2003, and the coal, because many Milwaukee buildings were still being heated by coal, the coal barge would come in and out
Right.
twice a day.
That coal barge was specifically for the power plant
Yeah,
in the valley.
right.
And
But it did heat a lot of the Milwaukee
Yeah.
buildings until.
one time I used to own a stock called Kinder Morgan. And when I explored Kinder Morgan, I found out they had the contract to deliver coal to the Milwaukee power plant. But that would have been almost a daily thing, because they
Or
were,
twice a day the barge
came a wind.
They go out.
Okay.
And
All right, yeah. That was probably the last coal, anything associated with the harbor or the river. And this is the Milwaukee River, the navigable part. The things that most people remember is, this is the Gimbel's department store. This is Wisconsin Avenue, Michigan, Clybourne, okay? Now, there are two types of bridges on the Milwaukee River. A bascule bridge, which goes up in the middle and stands like this, or a lift bridge, which goes straight up. Wisconsin Avenue, if you ever get stuck on it, is a bascule that goes up. On Michigan, it's a flat bridge and goes up. It's just two different styles. Most of them are bascule because of their age. The lift bridge is a bit more modern, and I think if they have to replace someone, any of the bridges completely, they would put in a lift bridge instead of a bascule. But that's it. And so those were up and down frequently because commerce was coming up the river. And most of the commerce would probably go another 2 bridges up and be done at that point. But it was critically important, and you can see many places are built up to the river to basically unload and load right from a building into a ship that's there. This is Kathy and Lori. This is for you. These are the 2 terminal buildings. Okay. So where was your condo? Was it here or there?
No, the tugboats.
The tugboat. Okay. This is the bag company, Chase Bag Company. You probably built on their property, the Chase Bag Company. They made bags that were cloth bags for wheat, rice, whatever. That was their specialty, and they did that. So the terminal buildings were built primarily as storage for commerce in and out of the Milwaukee Harbor. They would unload directly to the building, and they would unload onto the boats accordingly. And that was their purpose. So today when we go down the river, this is my end. Okay, that's their building. And this has been condoized, right? Yeah, this has been condoized. And then, so when we go by, you can wave to Lori and Kathy's former neighbors who are in the building.
Tugboats, and that was the fruit boats.
Yeah. Right, yep, here's the fruit boat right over here.
And that's what.
Did the fruit boat have a name other than the fruit boat? I can't remember. Somehow I remember it's somebody's fruit boat, whoever the owner was or something. I don't remember. There's another view of the bridges. This is another view of your neighborhood, so to speak, but you can see the bridges. Here, this is Water Street. This is
Broadway Street Bridge.
Broadway, okay. And these are the 2 terminal buildings.
Right into the river.
This is the bag company. This is a grain elevator that's there. So that's what it used to look like. And in this particular case, you're talking probably late 30s, early 50s, somewhere in that range. What's there? And the whole area in here is still industrial. It's not residential or commercial as it is today. It's very industrial. Most of the old industrial has been torn down and things have been substituted for it. But you can see where the Menominee flows in. Okay, here's Maitland Field. Okay, Maitland Field, right on the lakefront of Milwaukee. You can see Northwestern Mutual, the gas company. This is the Wells building over here. City Hall is over there. And that's what the waterfront looked like. And there were little planes there. And this is one that I always worried about. This is a seaplane. I don't know landing on Lake Michigan in a seaplane. It's not. Anyways, but this is designed so the plane can go up on it and people can get off and then it can go back into the water. It's kind of a ramp going up to allow people to get off.
What years?
Maitland Field starts in the late 30s and continues till the 50s. and then it will become something else. There's another view of Maitland, you can see it, kind of one that we've seen before.
They use that in the winter,
What?
the airport?
I don't know. I would guess not. It was primarily private planes as opposed to commercial. It was not a commercial venture, but it was on the lakefront. Here's a better picture of it. You see the runways that were there, just built out into the lake. Here's the art center. Okay. Here's the Cudahy Tower. This is the Elks Club. This would be the old railroad station. And you can see the harbor and then going in accordingly. The harbor now is defined by steel pilings that go in and give it shape. All the stuff that used to be just ground is no longer the case. It's got structure to it. But you gotta think long and hard about, my God, is that what it looked like? And look at the cars. It's a parking lot. It's even a bigger parking lot. Look at that. Now, First Wisconsin Tower is up. What year did they finish that? 1972. So you can date the picture, it's after 1972, it's not long after it. It's later, what's coming in? A freeway. This is a freeway being built. The first parts of the freeway are built, those coming into downtown and going over. This is not the freeway as we know it, but it's going up that way. It's really kind of interesting, trying to finish it off. And the building is gone. Northwestern Mutual has acquired the property here, and they would eventually build on it. And the Elks Club is gone. And today, this is all the Arts Center. Okay, that's what it looked like. Okay. One more picture here, in case we're talking about our little space that comes out front. The restaurant that was there for years. I don't know what you thought about the restaurant, but I thought it was terrible.
Had a nice view, but terrible food.
Yeah, nice view, but terrible food. And it was there for years and years. But you can see what it is. The cars are still there in the background. They had a long-term contract with the city, so their lease was with the city at that point. But it was just what was there. This is Maitland Field reconfigured as? Pardon? No one knows what it is. Well, it's the Summerfest grounds. It's the Nike site. We had a Nike site on the front, on the harbor. These are the buildings of the Nike site. If you remember early Summerfest, some of these buildings were used by them for offices and so forth when everything was down this way. Okay. So it's the Nike site. It's there. And there it is. There's the missiles that kept us safe. All the Nike sites like this were closed down when the Kennedy administration came into being. The guy who was the Secretary of Defense, who had worked for Ford Motor, why am I blanking on his name? McNamara, thank you very much. He decided these things were not essential anymore. We had the intercontinental ballistic missiles. And so these were all decommissioned and removed. The property, which was federal government at that time, was transferred to the city of Milwaukee. Okay? And it sat empty for a period of time before they did anything with it. Another view of it from the top, and I just wanted to stress, this is the Menominee River here, and this is things that were put in. These were canals that were put in so they could deliver stuff to people more effectively that way. And but it's a view. This becomes the modern view of what we refer today as Jones Island. All of this is called Jones Island today. It's not the original Jones Island, but most of it, a lot of it is filled. It's been expanded out, and what's coming in, and it comes in by ship. Okay? How do we get our oil and gas today? We get it by truck, but if you go out to the northwest side of Milwaukee, you're going to find a big tank farm out there. It comes by pipe. It comes underground and through distribution places, and this would eventually all disappear. But that's still the harbor. Another picture, a little closer up, the boats are in, so we know it's going to be winter time any day. The smokestack comes from metropolitan district, so forth like that. This is an early precursor of what's to come. There's another one over here. What do we see a lot of on Jones Island these days?
Salt.
Salt. Salt for our roads. Comes in by ship. Just another view of the harbor. It's a good view of it in terms of that. These are no longer there. They were there primarily for coal. We use that. That is the Kinnickinnick River coming in. You can see it's back out over here. It curves around. And another view, actually. If you look in the distance, there's really a lot of empty space out there. This is probably 1950, 51, 52. There's only a few tanks out there at this point. They would grow over time. This is the Allen Bradley complex. If you need a fixed point, that's there. And this is Kinnickinnick, the street that you see there going through. So the harbor has become formed, so to speak. This is the Menominee River. The Menominee River flows through that way, and a lot of coal is deposited here and on that side over there. These canals are all man-made, and they were to allow boats to get in closer to delivery. Many of those canals have been closed. I think there's still one left, but the others have all been closed and not there. One of the reasons we have the high-rise bridge, because you really don't need a bridge that big, was when they built the interstate system, Henry Meyer was the mayor of Milwaukee. And he wanted to protect the boat commerce. So the government had to build a bridge high enough so the boats could come in and out the Menominee Valley. Well, by the mid-70s, the big boats were no longer coming. And we had this very high, expensive bridge to sustain that river traffic that was now going rapidly away. So that's it. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I can't recognize any of the buildings that are here. This is the expanding picture of the thing. We still got boats coming in. But what do you see here in the picture? What? There's oil tanks, but what are these other white things? You see them on this side and this side. Those are the footings for the home bridge. They started putting them in, and it took a long time. They all had to be, so that's coming in. So we're now talking the late 60s in this particular picture. And that would go on. The other thing, I should point out, I didn't have any pictures of it this time, but last time I did, is the breakwater that's out here. The initial breakwater is in this area here, and then between 1932, as a WPA project that came after, they built the outer water break so that we have an inner harbor and then we have an outer harbor. And a lot of people spend their time sailing in the outer harbor. My best guess is the boat trip that we're going to be on is only going to go on the outer harbor. It's not going to go out into the lake. But it made a big difference in terms of protecting the shoreline in these particular areas. But it took years to do it. The thing that's interesting about it, if you look at it, you can't see it in this picture, but if you drive by, it looks like it's poured concrete. But the original barricade was large rocks in wooden footings, and that formed it up. Over the years, they had it protected, so what they developed was a cover made out of concrete. And they just came and dropped them in place and put them right over the top, so they didn't have to rebuild it. So there, it's got the stone underneath it. What we have here is, I wish I had it. This point up here is Columbia, not Columbia, but St. Mary's Hospital. UWM's back in the background. So it's shaping up now. We're beginning to see the final aspects of the harbor. I threw this in because you needed to know at one point in time, there was a large ferry operation out of Milwaukee for cars and for railroad cars. And the reason railroad cars were being shipped through Milwaukee is the backlog in Chicago was so long that it was easier to ship cars to Milwaukee, put them on a ferry and take them across the lake and drop them off in Muskegon. And this car is being pushed in to the ferry boat that's there. This is the MSD building over here, the older one that's there. It's coming in. This is an oddball. This is a submarine. The U.S. government sent a submarine to Milwaukee for purposes, whatever, public relations, etc. So it's coming down the river. People are kind of looking at it. You can see the bridges are up for it to go through. If you're a fan of Gertie the Duck was right over here around the corner. It was extremely popular during the war. People were coming down to see it by the thousands at that location. The Marine Bank building has still not been built. I call it the Marine Bank. It's not, whatever it is now, Chase.
BMO.
Pardon?
BMO.
Okay. No, that's not BMO. It's
No,
that
it's
location.
Chase.
Chase is what it is today. To me, it'll be the Marine Bank. So that's it. And here's another view of the island, the oil tanks, etc. And what you have here, this long piece right here, is the post office railway station, which was built in the early 70s. Here's a color version of that. You can see the footings are now being placed in for the thing, and you get a better idea of what it looks like. And it's a great picture. There's not a lot of color in pictures unless they're all very modern. I wasn't interested in the modern pictures. Anybody remember what this white thing in the horizon is over here, this big building? It's right off of Capitol Drive. Pardon?
Is it part of the Schlitz Brew Towers?
Yeah, it is. Schlitz stored their grain. Those are grain elevators for Schlitz Brewing. Continental Can also had an operation up at that location. This was all eventually torn down, but it was part of the Schlitz grain storage. And it's coming along now. We're getting more of it there. And here we go. We're getting the footings in. They're all in, and now we're building the bridge coming across at this time. There's another view of the bridge now spanning everything that's there. It took a long time to get this particular thing done. For a long time, this location was called Bridge to Nowhere. And it didn't go anywhere because you couldn't get to it. Okay? Anybody remember this when they opened the bridge? I do. I remember going, you could walk on it for a day or two before they let cars on. Everybody was going to take a walk on the bridge. And we walked up to this area with our kids, and they were not interested in it at all. Oh. So we worked our way back, and it was kind of interesting. And Northwestern Mutual is now building this building over here. Okay? And That's the building that they would retrofit and resurface it and everything for the new building they have today. And if you, any kid who's gone to school in Milwaukee at one time or another had to go on the Iroquois. I mean, you took Milwaukee history, it's the wrong grade as far as I'm concerned, but in fourth grade. So fourth graders are always going on the Iroquois for a tour of the harbor and that. There's another version of it. It's always kids on the boat. It's always kids from school, and it would be somewhere in April and May. They still would have to wear their winter coats or whatever it was, but it was part of the Milwaukee history that was taught in fourth grade. A new fisherman on the lakefront, because this is when the Chinook salmon started appearing in the lakes, and I was out fishing it. I just like the guy, he's got the cigarette in his mouth. And he's probably standing along the Summerfest ground somewhere. And this is the Great Milwaukee Experience, which they are doing what? Smelt fishing. You come at night, you get your lights, you got your dip net, you dip it down in, you get your smelt coming up, and you can go home and bite off the head and have dinner. No, it's still popular, but we don't have as many schmelts as we used to. I threw this in just out of a time reference. This is Lake Park, 1923. It's before the South Addition is built here on campus, which is 1926. You can see it's heavily manicured, not as many trees, but this is the road, and this is a sidewalk, and you can see the LA of trees over here. And this is taken from the terrace walkway behind Bartolotta's. And this is early view of the lakefront. This is probably 1890, 1895. This is Juneau Park. Juneau Park. As you can see, the lakefront is nothing but railroad tracks. There's no road, there's no anything like that. It is railroad tracks. In the distance over here, I don't know if you can see it, this is the water tower. So it's quite near that end, but Juneau Park, I have walkways. The buildings that you see there, the homes, would be torn down in the 1920s to expand Juneau Park. All the homes were torn down except one. And the owner so loved his house that he had it taken apart stone by stone and moved over here to Lake Drive. And that's the building, that's the home that's for sale now for $4.8 billion. If you know which one, it's on Lake, it's got the for sale sign out front. If you go down Lake Drive, it's the only one with the for sale sign. It was moved from this location, and you had to love your house a lot because it's a large stone house, and it was quite a deal that's there. So that's it. That's the kind of the review of what's there. Are there any burning questions that you have? So when we go on the boat tour, I'll give you somewhat of a narration so you have this kind of a background. I'll try to concentrate on some of the newer things that have been done in the harbor so you can understand it. The harbor has changed. In 1950, if you said that you would have an apartment or a condo on the river, people would have thought you were nuts. Why would you live at that location? Well, it's changed a lot. The big thing that's coming up now will be the dredging of the Milwaukee River and the harbor basin. They've built a retaining section, which is down by the Coast Guard station, where all that toxic gunk will go and be stored forever. It's a toxic waste site that they built. And at some point, the goal is to have a Milwaukee River that you can swim in. And if they can get all the junk out of there, there'll be a long way to get it there. So that's to come for the Milwaukee River and then for the harbor itself. But it's a lot better than it used to be. It used to be a lot of garbage.
Paul?
Yes.
I don't have a question, I have a suggestion that you should ask program committee to get you one of those light pointers?
Well, we've tried that,
Oh,
and
okay.
whatever happens, the digital thing cuts out the light, it doesn't accept it. I agree, we should get a long stick. A long stick would be helpful. No, I've got one upstairs, we've tried it, it's just, it works on the wall very well, but it does not work on the screen.
Bring you down the yardstick.
Yeah, next time, bring me the ice.
Got it in sandy stick, I'll let you know.
We'll probably do one in the fall on the buildings of East Castle. Combination of things, but Barry Samuels has colorized a lot of the photos, so it's a lot more interesting to look at it when they're colorized to see what they're like, etc. So we'll probably do something in late fall along that. Sandy?
Well, you said the Kinnickinnick River starts in Jackson Park?
Yep.
Is it a spring or what is it?
There is a little pond, spring, whatever, how it's fed, and it flows through, yeah. And when there's a lot of water, if you go into the parking lot at the hospital and go in the back, it's running water, it is going down the way. And they've been rehabbing the Kinnickinnick, they built all these concrete flow and managed the flow, and it hasn't worked. So they're taking all that out and putting in more natural riprap and stuff like that. So Kinnickinnick is changing from what it was to what it is today.
When did they close the Jones Island? I remember the late sixties, I took a boat over there.
Yeah, well, you can still take a boat over to Jones Island. Okay, there's, MMSD is not gonna let you onto their property, but there's a little park over there and so forth.
That's where I was going.
Yeah. I think general public access probably would have stopped sometime in the early 50s, somewhere in there. Particularly once the gas and oil tanks were there, and they didn't want people wandering around and doing that. But it's changed quite a bit from what it was.
Well, what you were talking about at the KK, if you go to Pulaski now, if you go to Pulaski Park now, you can see what it's like when you take out the concrete. You can really see the KK now from Pulaski, and then there's a water walk you can take all the way to 6th Street. That's worth you can just see how they're bringing it back to what it was more natural before they made it dangerous with the concrete. Stuff. The kids were drowning in.
It's going to be a distinct improvement for the Kinnickinnick in terms of what it looks like. It'll be a lot more natural than all this engineered concrete, so to speak, that was put in. And look very good. Any other questions? Otherwise, you are.
Yeah, when I was in grade school, I grew up in Bayview, about,
South Sider here.
yes, about 4 or 5 blocks from Jones Island. And so this was in the late 40s. And I had kids in my classroom who lived, at least they said, they lived on Jones Island, and they lived in Quonset huts. And for the longest time, I remember walking up that way, and there were Quonset huts and
I didn't put the picture in for this one, but you're quite right. In 1947, the U.S. government built a series of white Quonset huts. And if you come off the home bridge and you're going into Bayview, you come off and you have to kind of make that circle to get over to Russell Avenue, that's there. There's that park, and that's where the Quonset huts were. Okay, so they might have said they were living on Jones Island. It really wasn't Jones Island, but it was damn close to what was there. And there must have been 40 Quonset huts for military husbands and wives only. And then if they had children, they were there. It was temporary housing, that's what it was meant to be. And once they moved out, the Quonset huts all disappeared. The Quonset huts were very prevalent after World War II. They were temporary buildings that were used for lots of things. When I came to UWM, there was still one Quonset hut over by the physics building. Yeah, and they were quite popular. Quick build. The housing crisis that we talk about today, back in those days, it was a Quonset hut. And that solved the problem temporarily. But that's what it was done for. Anything else? Otherwise, Enjoy your afternoon.